My name is Clara Bennett and I'm 30 years old. What I'm about to tell you is the kind of story that honestly keeps you up at night, not because it's scary but because it's real. It happened to me. And even now, sitting here a full year later, I'm still kind of processing all of it. 4 months ago, my parents sold my grandmother's rare 1920s Steinway Model D concert grand piano, the one she promised would be mine, the one she literally said my name over in front of the whole family, and took all $100,000 to buy my brother a brand new Cadillac Escalade. They thought Grandma was too out of it in hospice to ever find out. They thought I was too soft, too quiet, too much of a pushover to do anything about it. They were dead wrong. On both counts. When I finally sat down with Grandma and told her everything, every single ugly detail, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't fall apart the way they were counting on her to. She just reached calmly for her phone on that little hospice nightstand, scrolled through her contacts, pressed call, and said 7 words that would absolutely destroy everything my parents thought they had. I'll get to those 7 words. But first, let me take you all the way back to where this whole thing started. 'Cause to understand why those words landed like a bomb, you gotta understand everything that came before them. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let me take you back to the day it all started. The call came on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, right after I finished teaching my last student of the day, a sweet 7-year-old named Lily who'd finally figured out how to find middle C without looking down at her fingers. My phone buzzed. It was my dad, Robert Bennett. "No, hey, how are you?" "No, I'm sorry to drop this on you. Just, your grandmother had another episode. She's stable, but they're moving her to hospice. Family meeting at the hospital. 1 hour. Click. That's my dad. Always efficient. Never warm. I dropped everything and drove over. By the time I got there, my parents and my brother Marcus were already huddled in the corner of the waiting room like they were planning some kind of business strategy. My dad, Robert, stood with his arms crossed, doing that thing he always does where he tries to look like the most important person in every room he walks into. My mom, Patricia, had her designer bag clutched to her chest like a life jacket. And Marcus, 26 years old, 4 years younger than me, always the golden boy, was just scrolling through his phone like this whole situation was a minor inconvenience. "Good, you're here," Dad said when he spotted me. "Not how are you holding up. Not this must be so hard. Just good you're here." Like I was a package that had finally been delivered. "We need to divide responsibilities," he continued. "Your mother and I have the business to run. Marcus is in a really important phase right now with the Kellerman account." He looked at me the way someone looks when they're about to assign the worst chore on the list. "So, Clara, you'll handle the daily visits." I wanted to say something. I wanted to point out that I teach music to over 40 kids every single week, that I run an after-school program, that my time has real value too. But instead I heard myself say quietly, "Of course. I want to be with her anyway." "Perfect," Dad said, already turning away. As I walked down the hallway toward Grandma's room, my mom's voice drifted behind me, clearly meant for Marcus, not for me. "At least she's good for something." Kept walking. Didn't turn around. Not because it didn't sting. Stung like crazy. But I had gotten so used to being the background character in my own family that I'd stopped expecting anything different. My grandmother, Eleanor Bennett, Nana Ellie to me since I could barely talk, had made her hospice room feel like her. Lavender sachets on the windowsill. Old photographs lined up carefully on the nightstand. A stack of old concert programs sitting next to her water pitcher like she was still thinking about performing. She was 78 years old and dying of heart failure. The doctors said weeks, maybe 2 months if things went well. But her mind? Sharp as a blade. Clear as a bell. She'd look at you with those bright blue eyes and you'd feel like she could see straight through every lie you'd ever told. On my very first real visit, just the 2 of us, she reached over and took my hand. "Clara, baby. I need you to hear something." "Anything, Grandma." The piano. She let that word hang in the air between us. I knew exactly which one she meant. A 1920s Steinway Model D concert grand piano, a rare, full concert-size instrument that had been in our family for generations. It wasn't just valuable because of what it was worth on paper. It was irreplaceable in every way that actually matters. I'd learned my first real scales on those keys when I was 8 years old. Sitting at that piano always felt like being connected to every woman in our family who came before me. "It's yours," she said, firm and clear. "I already told your father and your mother. Said it out loud at Christmas dinner, right in front of everyone. That piano belongs to you, Clara. You're the only one who really understands what it means." I remembered that Christmas dinner. I remembered Dad's jaw getting tight. I remembered Marcus snorting under his breath and calling it, "that big old dusty thing." "Grandma, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to." She cut me off gently but firmly. "I want to. Promise me you'll take care of it." "I promise." She smiled then. This slow, knowing smile that held secrets I couldn't quite see yet. "Some people need to learn lessons the hard way, sweetheart. I've been patient for a long, long time. But patience has a limit." I didn't fully understand what she meant. Not yet. 2 weeks later, Grandma asked me to stop by her house and pick up some old photographs from her performing days, pictures she wanted to look at one more time. I still had a spare key, so I swung by after school on a Thursday afternoon. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. I went through the front hallway, past the kitchen, and into the living room where Grandma's Steinway had stood for decades, right in the big corner by the windows where the afternoon light hit it perfectly every single day. Corner was empty. I stopped breathing. Where the piano should have been, there was just a blank stretch of wall and a rectangle pressed deep into the carpet, a ghost of something that had lived there for years, suddenly ripped out. I stood there staring at it. My hands started shaking on their own. I called my mom. "Mom." My voice came out all cracked and weird. "Where is Grandma's piano?" A pause. Then completely casual. "Your father handled it." "It's adult business, Clara. Don't stress yourself out." "Handled it? What does that even mean? Where did it go?" I said don't worry about it. Click. She hung up on me. I stood in that empty living room, staring at that rectangle in the carpet, and I just knew. Something deep in my gut told me exactly what had happened. I drove straight to my parents' house. Dad answered the door holding a glass of bourbon, looking annoyed like I'd interrupted something important. "The piano," I said. "What did you do with it?" He didn't even flinch. "Sold it. Got $100,000. Good price." The floor tilted under me. "You sold it?" Grandma said it was mine. She said it out loud. In front of everyone at Christmas. He shrugged. He actually shrugged like I'd asked him about the weather. "Your grandmother is dying, Clara. She doesn't need a piano." Then from behind him, the jingle of car keys. Marcus appeared in the hallway, grinning that grin I'd grown up hating. "New keys," he said, dangling them right in my face. "New ride." "You bought him a car?" My voice went completely flat. "With Grandma's piano money?" "A Cadillac Escalade," Mom said, appearing from the kitchen with her arms folded neat and tight across her chest. "Marcus needs to make the right impression on the Kellerman family. Their son is his most important business connection right now. The appearances matter in that world." That piano was supposed to be mine. "And what exactly would you do with $100,000? Mom tilted her head like I was a slow student. "You teach kids music lessons, Clara. You live in that little apartment. Marcus needed this for his future." Marcus leaned against the doorframe, twirling the keys around one finger like this was all just a fun afternoon for him. "Don't be salty, sis. Maybe if you made smarter life choices, you'd have nice things too." He actually winked at me. I looked at the three of them standing there, this perfectly arranged little unit that had never really made room for me, and something cracked open inside my chest. Something that had been held shut for a very, very long time. "Does Grandma know?" I asked quietly. Dead silence. "Does she know you sold her piano?" Mom's face went cold and hard like a mask snapping into place. "She's on pain medication half the time. She doesn't need to be upset about things she can't change. So that's a no. And if you go in there and tell her," Mom stepped closer, dropping her voice to something sharp and low, "and it causes her stress and something happens, that is on you. Do you want to be responsible for that? Do you want that on your conscience for the rest of your life?" I turned around and walked out without saying a single word back. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I sat on my second-hand couch in my little apartment, staring at a framed photo of Grandma at one of her old performances, sitting at a grand piano, laughing, completely alive, and I went back and forth in my head for hours. What if telling her really does hurt her? What if the shock is too much? Is my need to be honest worth causing her pain in her final weeks? But then Grandma's own voice would come back to me. Something she told me when I was 12 and trying to hide a bad grade from my parents. "Truth can hurt, baby girl. But a lie? A lie does damage that doesn't show up until it's way too late to fix." I thought about every single time I'd stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every time I'd made myself smaller so everyone else could feel bigger. And what did I have to show for it? Nothing. I was still the invisible one. The useful one. The one visiting Grandma every single day while Marcus couldn't look up from his phone for 5 minutes at the hospital. If I stayed quiet now, I wasn't protecting anybody. I was just helping them get away with it. By 3 a.m., my mind was made up. Grandma deserved the truth. She deserved to know what her own son had done. And maybe, just maybe, I deserved to stop apologizing for taking up space in my own life. I got to the hospice early the next morning before school. Grandma was already awake, watching the sunrise through her window. "You look terrible, honey," she said softly. "Yeah, I know." I pulled a chair right up close and took her hand. "Grandma, I have to tell you something. And it's gonna hurt." Her eyes, still sharp, still completely her, studied my face carefully. "Then tell me." So I did. All of it. The empty corner. The $100,000. The brand new Cadillac Escalade sitting in Marcus's name in my parents' driveway with a bow on it. Dad's casual shrug. The mom's threat about how it'd be my fault if Grandma got stressed. Every ugly detail laid out flat between us. I braced myself for tears. For her heart to break right there in front of me. Instead, Grandma Eleanor let out this long, slow breath. Not a gasp. Not a sob. Just a breath. Like someone who had been half expecting bad weather for a long time and finally saw the clouds roll in. "I knew this might happen," she said quietly. I stared at her. "You knew?" "I know my son." Her voice was completely steady. "I've watched him become who he is for 40 years. I hoped he'd prove me wrong. But I also prepared for exactly this." "Prepared how?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slowly reached for her phone on the nightstand, rolled through her contacts, found a name, pressed call, put it on speaker. The phone rang twice. Then a deep, calm male voice came through. "Eleanor, how are you feeling today?" Grandma looked right at me. And then she said the 7 words that changed absolutely everything. "It's time, Gerald. Do it at the party. Saturday. Robert's 65th birthday. The house. Have all the documents ready," she added. "I'll have everything prepared," Gerald said. "I'll be there. Thank you, old friend." She ended the call and looked at me with that same slow, knowing smile I could never quite read. "Gerald Marsh," she said calmly. "My attorney for 32 years. He was your grandfather's closest friend. My mouth was hanging open. You have your own attorney? This whole time. I have many things your father doesn't know about, Clara. She set the phone down gently on the nightstand. Robert has always assumed he understands everything about my life and my affairs completely. That has always been his biggest weakness, assuming things instead of actually paying attention. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something enormous, looking down into depths I couldn't see the bottom of. What is happening Saturday at Dad's birthday party? Justice, she said simply. Delayed. But justice. She leaned back against her pillows, suddenly looking more tired. Come to the party. Dress like you mean it. And bring your patience, the kind I taught you when you were first learning to play and wanted to give up every other day. Despite everything swirling in my chest, I almost laughed. That bad? Worse. A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. But absolutely necessary. 3 days before the party, Grandma asked Gerald to meet with me privately. His office was a quiet place downtown that smelled like old leather and strong black coffee. Gerald Marsh was in his early 70s, white-haired, gold-rimmed glasses, the kind of man who moves slow and thinks fast. Your grandmother talks about you constantly, he said, shaking my hand warmly. It's a real pleasure to finally meet you. He sat me down across from his desk. Then he said something that made the whole room feel like it tilted sideways. Tell me, do you know who actually owns the house your parents live in? I blinked. They do. Grandma and Grandpa gave it to them when Grandpa passed away. Gerald's expression didn't move even a little. Is that what they told you? It's what everyone says. Everyone is wrong. He slid a folder across the desk toward me. Inside was a property deed. At the very top, in clear black ink, Eleanor Bennett. Not Robert. Not Patricia. Eleanor. She never transferred ownership, Gerald said. Not once. Not legally. Your parents have been living in that house, completely rent-free, for over 11 years, genuinely believing it was theirs. Never was. Not for a single day. My brain was spinning. But why would she let them believe? Because she was watching, he said. Watching to see if her son would prove her wrong. He paused. He didn't. That same night, I remembered a box Grandma had given me years ago, stuffed with old photographs, handwritten letters, pressed flowers from her garden. I'd never gone through it carefully because it always felt too personal. Like reading someone's diary without permission. I dug it out from the back of my closet and sat down on the bedroom floor. Near the very bottom, under a stack of old concert programs, I found a sealed envelope yellowed with age. My name on the front in Grandma's neat handwriting. And underneath my name in smaller letters, for Clara when you need to understand. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a photograph of Grandma mid-performance, a copy of a legal document with her signature dated 5 years ago, and a small handwritten note clipped to the corner. The house never left my hands, sweetheart. It was only borrowed. And some borrowers don't deserve the privilege. Grandma E. I read it 3 times. Then I got it. Saturday's party was being held at Grandma's house. The house my parents had hosted fancy dinner parties in. The house they'd renovated without asking anyone. The house Dad bragged about to his business partners like he'd built it with his own 2 hands. The house he'd stood in for 11 years like an absolute king on a throne. He didn't own a single square foot of it. The whole foundation of everything he thought he'd built, the status, the image, the carefully constructed idea of Robert Bennett as a powerful, successful man, was sitting on borrowed ground. And on Saturday, he was about to find that out. In front of everyone he had ever tried to impress. Grandma called me the night before the party. Her voice was weaker than before. I could hear how much effort every word cost her, but her mind was still razor sharp. Are you ready, baby girl? I think so. I paused. Are you sure about all of this, Grandma? It's Dad's birthday. In front of all those people. That, she said carefully, is exactly why it has to be Saturday. Your father sold my piano in front of people. He announced it at a family dinner like it was his great accomplishment. He didn't ask me. He didn't even think about you. He assumed I was too sick to matter and you were too quiet to fight back. Yeah, I said softly. I know. Then you understand why the lesson needs witnesses. Her voice got softer. I'm not doing this for revenge, Clara. Revenge is empty. I'm doing this because it's right. Because you deserve to be protected, especially after I'm gone. A long pause. I don't have much time left. The doctors say weeks. Honestly, I think it's less. I can feel it. Tears burned hot behind my eyes. Do you trust me? She asked. Always, Grandma. Always. Then comes Saturday. Wear something that makes you feel strong. And no matter what happens in that room, remember you are not the villain in this story. You never were. Saturday came in with bright winter sunshine and the kind of cold, crisp air that makes everything feel extra sharp and real. Grandma's house, the house my parents had lived in for 11 years believing every inch of it was theirs, was already buzzing when I pulled up. Cars lined the whole driveway and spilled out onto the street. A big "Happy 65th, Robert" banner was strung across the front porch. About 40 guests were already inside. Neighbors, extended family, business contacts, all dressed up and mingling. I wore a deep burgundy dress and the pearl earrings Grandma had given me for my 25th birthday. Simple. Put together. My armor. Inside, I spotted Gerald Marsh in the far corner almost immediately, sitting quiet and unremarkable, leather briefcase at his feet, looking to anyone else like just another older guest. He caught my eye across the crowded room and gave one small, steady nod. I nodded back. My Aunt Sylvia, Grandma's younger sister, appeared at my elbow right away. Clara, honey. How is Eleanor really doing? Tired, I said, but sharp as ever. Her eyes drifted to the corner of the living room where Grandma's piano used to stand. Someone had put a large potted fern there to fill the space. It looked completely ridiculous, like a Band-Aid slapped over a broken bone. The piano's gone, Sylvia said quietly. Yeah. Before I could say anything more, Dad's voice boomed out across the whole room. Can I get everyone's attention for just 1 second? Dad stood right in the center of the living room, crystal glass raised high, owning the space the way he always did, like a man who had never once in his life doubted he belonged exactly where he was standing. Today we celebrate 65 years of me. Warm laughter from the crowd. But I also want to share some really exciting family news. He gestured proudly toward Marcus near the fireplace. As most of you know, my son Marcus has been building some incredible connections with the Kellerman family. Really big things in the works there. He paused for effect. And to celebrate his bright future, we have a little surprise. He led the whole party outside. Sitting in the driveway, gleaming under the winter sun with a giant silver bow right on the hood, was a brand new black Cadillac Escalade. A gift, Dad announced loudly, one arm wrapped around Marcus's shoulder, made possible by Grandma Eleanor's generous decision to sell her antique concert piano and invest that money in her grandson's future. Marcus laughed big, shook Dad's hand hard, posed for photos right next to the car like he was in a commercial. Everyone clapped and cheered. I stood frozen on the porch steps. He was rewriting the whole story. Right there in front of 40 people, turning theft into generosity, making himself the hero of a story where he was clearly the villain. A woman standing nearby leaned close to her husband. Wasn't that piano supposed to go to the other granddaughter? The music teacher. Her husband shrugged. Guess plans changed. Aunt Sylvia appeared at my shoulder, her face gone pale. Clara, did Eleanor actually agree to this? Before I could even answer, Marcus spotted me from near the car. Clara, come get in the picture. Don't be such a buzzkill. He flashed that grin. I'm sure Grandma left you something too, maybe her old sheet music or whatever. A few people nearby laughed. My eyes burned. My hands were shaking at my sides. And then, right behind me, I heard the quiet, steady click of a briefcase opening. Crowds started filtering back inside. Aunt Sylvia stepped right into Dad's path near the doorway. "Robert." Her voice was calm, but her hands weren't. "I need to ask you something." Dad's smile held steady. "Can it wait, Sylvia?" "We're kind of." "Did you ask Eleanor before you sold her piano?" Every nearby conversation stumbled to a halt, like someone had cut the sound. "Mother is in hospice," Dad said, smooth and easy. "She isn't always in a condition to make complex decisions. We acted in her best interest. She is completely lucid, Robert." Aunt Sylvia's voice got stronger and steadier. "I spoke with her myself. She told me you never asked her permission. You never even told her the piano was gone." More and more people were paying attention now. I could see the Kellerman family, Marcus's big business connections, exchanging looks across the room. Mom pushed through the crowd. "Sylvia, this is Robert's birthday. Can we please?" "A scene?" Aunt Sylvia laughed, but there was zero humor in it. "Patricia, your husband sold Eleanor's most treasured possession without one word to her and used the money to buy a car. If anyone in this room is making a scene right now, it is not me." Then, from across the room, a calm new voice cut through everything. "Actually, I think public is exactly the right place for this conversation." Gerald Marsh was on his feet now. Briefcase open. A neat folder of documents held steady in his hand. He walked to the center of the living room with the kind of quiet, unhurried authority that only comes from someone who has absolutely nothing to hide. "Good afternoon, everyone." His voice carried easily across the whole room. "My name is Gerald Marsh. I've been Eleanor Bennett's personal attorney for 32 years. Color drained right out of Dad's face. "I apologize for the interruption," Gerald said, without actually sounding sorry about it at all. "But Eleanor has asked me to address some urgent matters regarding her estate." She felt strongly that her family, and those close to them, should hear this directly and in person. Dad found his voice. "My mother has an attorney?" "Since when?" "Since before you finished high school, Robert." Gerald's tone stayed polite, but it cut clean. "I also represented your father. You would know that if you'd ever thought to ask." He let that land for a moment. "Now, I understand there's been some confusion about property ownership in this family. Let me clear that up right now." He held the first document up so the whole room could see it clearly. "This is the deed to the house we are all currently standing in." His voice was clear and completely steady. "The name on this deed is Eleanor Bennett." A deliberate pause. "Not Robert Bennett. Not Patricia Bennett. Eleanor. This house has never been legally transferred. It was never gifted. Your parents have been living here completely rent-free for over 11 years, at Eleanor's personal generosity and nothing more than that." The room absolutely erupted. Gasps. Whispers. People turning to look at each other with wide eyes. Marcus stared at Dad. Dad grabbed the back of a chair to keep himself steady. Mom's hand flew straight to her mouth. "This cannot be right," Marcus said loudly. "Dad, tell them this is some kind of mistake." "It is very much right," Gerald said. "And I am not finished." When the noise settled down, Gerald pulled out a second document, thicker this time, clean and official. 5 years ago," he said evenly, "Eleanor established a private trust, completely separate from her will, created specifically to protect her most valuable assets in the event of financial misconduct by any family member." "Financial misconduct?" Mom's voice cracked right open. "We are her family. Family members can still commit misconduct, Mrs. Bennett." He said it simply, not cruelly, just as a fact. "Per the terms of this trust, the following assets are irrevocably assigned to a single beneficiary: the property we are standing in right now, Eleanor's financial accounts, and all items of designated personal value, including the 1920s Steinway Model D concert grand piano that was recently sold without authorization or consent. He looked up from the document. His eyes found me directly across the room. The sole beneficiary is Clara Rose Bennett. Half a second of complete, total silence. Then Marcus lost it entirely. What? This is fraud, Dad shouted. He actually pointed at me from across the room, his face twisted in a way I had genuinely never seen before. She manipulated her. She turned my own mother against this family. This little. Mr. Bennett. Gerald's voice went to pure ice. I would very strongly advise you to finish that sentence extremely carefully. There are 40 people standing in this room right now. Aunt Sylvia stepped over and planted herself right beside me. Her hand found mine and held on tight. Gerald continued without missing a beat. Regarding the piano sale specifically, since the instrument was designated trust property and the sale was conducted without Eleanor's knowledge or consent, this legally constitutes the unauthorized disposal of trust assets. He looked directly at my parents and Marcus. The $100,000 must be returned to the trust within 30 days. Failure to do so will result in civil litigation. Given the paper trail we have, I can assure you the outcome would not be favorable for your family. Marcus's face just crumbled. 30 days? The money is already gone. It all went to the... Then I'd suggest looking very seriously into returning the vehicle, Gerald said, glancing calmly toward the window where the brand-new Cadillac Escalade was still sitting in the driveway with its big silver bow on the hood. The dealership may accept a return, though you will almost certainly take a financial loss. That's my car, Marcus said, sounding like a kid who just got his birthday present taken away. It is a car purchased with stolen trust funds, Gerald said simply and clearly. That is what it is. I watched the Kellerman family, the people Marcus had been working so hard to impress, take a quiet step backward. The older Mr. Kellerman leaned in close to his son and said something low. Neither one of them looked even slightly interested in doing business with the Bennett family anymore. Dad turned toward me. His face was a complete storm. You did this. You went behind our backs and turned her against us. I had been quiet for so long. For 30 years of my life. Every argument I hadn't started. Every insult I'd swallowed down. Every single time I'd made myself smaller so everyone else in this family could feel bigger. Not today. No, Dad. My voice was steadier than I had ever heard it come out of my own mouth. I didn't do anything. Grandma made these decisions 5 years ago, long before I knew one single thing about them. I only found out about all of this week. Liar, Mom said, her voice shaking with real venom. You have always been jealous of Marcus. Of this whole family. This is your revenge. Revenge! Something cold and clear settled right in the center of my chest. I'm not the one who sold Grandma's piano without asking her. I'm not the one who spent $100,000 on a car and stood up in front of 40 people today and called it Grandma's generous decision. I'm not the one who lied. I looked straight at my mother. I'm not the one who said, at least she's good for something in the hospital hallway when I agreed to visit Grandma every single day while the rest of you were too busy. I'm not the one who hung up on me when I called asking where the piano went. And I am not the one who looked me in the face and told me I would be responsible for killing Grandma if I told her the truth. The gasps that rippled through that room felt like a wave washing over everything. I spent 30 years being invisible in this family, I said. No raised voice. No tears. Just truth. I accepted it because I thought that's what love required, making yourself small so everyone else could take up more space. But Grandma taught me something completely different. She taught me that loving yourself means standing up, even when standing up is the scariest thing you've ever done. I looked at my dad, my mom, my brother. I'm not apologizing anymore. I'm not staying silent anymore. And I am done pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. Complete, total silence filled that room. After the guests slowly started drifting out, awkward goodbyes, lots of avoided eye contact, nobody quite knowing what to say, Gerald pulled me aside quietly. "Legally, you have real options here," he said. "You could move for immediate eviction. Eleanor would fully support whatever you decide." I looked across the room. Dad was sitting in a chair with his head in his hands. Mom stood by the window staring at nothing, mascara streaking down both cheeks. Marcus had slipped outside, probably standing next to a Cadillac he was about to lose. Part of me, the hurt, tired, long-suffering part, wanted to let everything crash down on all three of them at once, to finally make them feel even a fraction of what I'd been carrying for 30 years. But that's not who I wanted to be. "I don't want to throw them out right away," I said slowly. Gerald raised one eyebrow. "You're certain? Give them 90 days for the money. Not 30. Let them sell the car and figure things out. They can stay in the house on a proper lease, fair, reasonable rent. And after Grandma passes, 12 months to find somewhere new." Gerald was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That is remarkably generous given everything that happened here today." "I'm not doing it to be generous," I said honestly. "I'm doing it because becoming anything like them would be the worst possible outcome of all of this." He studied my face for a moment, then nodded slowly, something that looked like real respect crossing his expression. "Your grandmother said you would respond exactly this way." He paused. "She is very proud of you, Clara." My throat tightened. "I know." The agreement got drafted right there on the dining room table, witnessed by Aunt Sylvia and 2 guests who stayed. Dad signed without once looking at me. Mom's hand shook so badly she could barely hold the pen. Neither of them said one single word directly to me. By the time the last signature was on the page, the party was completely over. The birthday cake sat untouched on the table. The banner drooped sadly over the front porch. My phone buzzed. A video call from the hospice number. I walked to the empty corner of the living room, the exact spot where Grandma's piano used to stand, and answered. Her face appeared on the screen. Pale. Tired. But her eyes were warm and completely, fully her. "My brave girl." Her voice was soft. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," I admitted honestly. "And relieved." "And sad." All three at the exact same time. "That's what courage feels like, sweetheart." A gentle smile. "It never feels comfortable while you're right in the middle of it." I pressed my hand flat against the screen, wishing more than anything I could actually hold her hand. "Thank you, Grandma. For all of it. For protecting me." "Don't thank me." Her smile turned just a little bittersweet. "Just live well. Play music. Be happy. That is all the thank you I will ever need." "I will." "I promise." "I know you will, baby." She closed her eyes slowly. "I know you will." The hospice called at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. "You should come now," the nurse said gently. "She's asking for you." I drove faster than I should have the whole way there. When I walked into her room, the morning light was coming through the curtains in soft gold ribbons across her bed. Her breathing was shallow and slow, but her eyes opened when she heard me come through the door. And she smiled. "My Clara." Barely a whisper. "Come sit with me." I took her hand. Felt so light. Like holding something that was already halfway somewhere better. "I need to say something," she murmured. "Something I should have said to you a long time ago." "Grandma." "I'm sorry." I blinked hard. "Sorry for what?" "For not acting sooner." A single tear made its way slowly down her cheek. "I watched how they treated you for years and years. I kept making excuses for Robert. I kept hoping he'd change. I let it go on way too long. That is not your fault, I said, my own tears falling freely now. Maybe not entirely. But I could have stepped in sooner instead of waiting until I was almost out of time. She squeezed my hand, weak but real and completely intentional. You deserved so much better for so much longer than you got it. I'm sorry for that. You gave me everything that actually mattered, I said fiercely. Music. Love. The belief that I was worth something. That was more than enough. That was everything. She smiled, and just for a second she looked like the grandmother I remembered from when I was little. Strong. Warm. Full of life. You have such a good heart, Clara. But you finally learned how to guard it too. You taught me that. Then I did at least one thing right. Her eyes slowly closed. I'm so tired now, sweetheart. I'm right here. I know. Her voice was barely there. I know. Grandma Eleanor passed away that evening. Peacefully. With my hand in hers. And I wouldn't have traded that moment for anything in the entire world. 5 days later, at the little church she'd attended for 50 years, we said a proper goodbye. Simple, exactly like she wanted. No over-the-top flower arrangements. No fancy anything. Just music, real memories, and the people who genuinely, truly loved her. I played piano during the service. Not her Steinway, which was long gone, but the church's old upright in the corner. I played a piece she'd taught me when I was 9 years old. Every single note felt like a real conversation between us. My parents sat in the very back of the church. They didn't come near me before the service, during it, or after. Dad stared straight ahead the whole time like a man waiting for a verdict to be read out loud. Mom wore big dark sunglasses that hid most of her face. Marcus didn't show up at all. Mom told someone he was too emotionally overwhelmed. I delivered the eulogy. I talked about Grandma's music and her wisdom and the way she always showed up, fully showed up, for the people she loved. I talked about how she taught me that love isn't about big dramatic gestures. It's about choosing to truly see someone day after day after day. I didn't bring up any of the drama. That wasn't what that day was for. Afterward, I saw Dad start walking toward me from across the church. He took 2 steps. Hesitated. Then Mom grabbed his arm and pulled him in a completely different direction. He never made it over to me. Maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe not. I'll honestly never know. But I'd already started making peace with the fact that some apologies just never come, and you have to find a way to be okay anyway. You have to. 6 months after the funeral, I moved into Grandma's house. It felt strange at first, walking through rooms full of her things, sleeping in the guest room I'd known since I was tiny. Her presence was everywhere. In the lavender from her garden drifting through the open windows. In the way the old floorboards creaked a little in the hallway. In the afternoon light that fell across the kitchen table at exactly the same time every single day. For the first few weeks I kept walking into rooms and half expecting to hear her voice call out to me. But slowly, it started to feel like mine too. I used part of the returned money to buy a new piano. Not a rare 1920s concert Steinway, nothing I could afford would ever touch that. But a beautiful, warm-sounding Yamaha Grand that I placed right in the corner where hers used to stand. Different but full of meaning. A real, honest new beginning. I started giving private lessons on weekends right out of the house. My very first student was Aunt Sylvia's granddaughter, Maya, 7 years old, bright eyes, the kind of delightful impatience that I recognized completely because I had that exact same energy at her age. The first time she played a full scale all the way through without stopping once, I cried. I actually cried right there in front of a 7-year-old and had to pretend I got something in my eye. My parents moved out 2 months after Grandma's death. They didn't wait the full 12 months I'd offered them. They said they couldn't live somewhere with so many painful memories. I think the real reason is that every single thing in that house reminded them of exactly what they'd lost, and exactly how they lost it. Dad's business took a real hit. Word travels fast in tight professional circles. Kellerman family quietly went in a different direction. Couple of other partnerships dissolved without much explanation. Polished, powerful image Robert Bennett had spent decades carefully building had a crack running straight through it now. And people notice cracks. Marcus had to return the Cadillac Escalade. The dealership took it back for $83,000, $17,000 less than what my parents originally paid. He rides the metro now. I don't gloat about any of this. I genuinely, truly don't. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some quiet, deep satisfaction in watching a house of cards finally fall down when nobody's propping it up with lies anymore. 8 months after the funeral, my phone rang. Marcus. I stared at the screen for 4 full rings before I answered. Clara. His voice sounded completely different from anything I'd heard from him before. Quieter. Smaller. Like something heavy had been pulled right out of it. Marcus. Long silence on both ends. I'm not calling to ask for anything, he said finally. I needed to say something. Okay. I've been thinking hard about everything that happened. A shaky breath. I was so angry at first. At you, at Grandma, at everybody. I kept telling myself you'd stolen something from me. Like the whole world had just turned against me for absolutely no reason. Another pause. I started going to therapy. I didn't say anything. I just listened. My therapist says I have a lot to work through about how I was raised. About why I grew up genuinely believing I deserved things I never actually earned. A hollow, not quite funny laugh. Turns out being the favorite kid isn't actually a gift. It wrecks you in ways you don't even see until everything completely falls apart. Grandma loved you too, Marcus, I said carefully. She just couldn't keep rewarding behavior that hurt other people. I know. His voice broke a little right there. I really do know that now. I'm not saying we're good, I said honestly. Trust takes real time to build back up. But if you ever actually want to talk, not make excuses, not point fingers, I'm willing to listen. That's way more than I deserve. Probably, I said. Not to be mean. Just because it was the truth. But I'm willing anyway. We hung up without a clean goodbye. Some doors don't fly wide open all at once. But they can open, a little at a time, if both people are genuinely willing to try. It's spring. A full year since Grandma first went into hospice. Tonight I'm sitting at my piano in the living room as the sun goes down slow over the garden she planted 20 years ago. The windows are open wide. There's this warm, gentle breeze coming in carrying jasmine from outside, mixing with the old warm smell of the wood floors. The kind of quiet evening where everything just feels right in a way that's almost impossible to put into words. I play Grandma's favorite piece, the one she used to perform when she was at her absolute best. The notes move through the house and fill it up with something soft and warm and real. She is everywhere in this room. In the photographs on the shelves. In the creak of the old chair by the window. In the way the last bit of evening light stretches itself across the floor like it's reaching for something. She's gone. But she's not really gone, you know what I mean? I think about everything that happened over this past year. The betrayal. The reveal. The moment I finally stopped shrinking and started standing up for real. I think about my parents and their smaller, quieter life across town. About Marcus on the metro, sitting with his therapist, slowly figuring out who he actually is when nobody's handing him everything on a silver plate. I don't hate them. Hating people takes way too much energy. Energy I'd much rather put into music and into my students and into a life that is genuinely, truly mine now. Peace ends. The last note hangs in the still air for just a moment. Then it fades into the evening quiet. I look at Grandma's photograph sitting on top of the piano. Her at some outdoor performance about 30 years ago, laughing, hands resting on the keys, completely and totally alive. I'm doing okay, Grandma, I whisper into the quiet room. Better than okay. somewhere, in that way you can't fully explain or prove, but you just feel deep in your chest, I believe she hears me. I don't have the original piano. I don't have the family I always imagined I had. But I have something that took me 30 full years to find. I have myself. I have my voice. I have a life that's built on truth instead of silence. And that, more than the house, more than the money, more than any of it, is the real inheritance my grandmother left me. The courage to finally take up space in my own story. That's everything. That's my story. If it hit you somewhere real, if you've ever felt completely invisible in your own family, if you've ever stayed quiet to keep the peace until you literally could not take it anymore, you are not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's how you honor your own worth. And sometimes the people who love you most have been quietly protecting you for years, just waiting for exactly the right moment to make it right. Drop a comment like the story and subscribe to my channel. Have you ever had to stand up to your own family? What happened? I read every single one.